Welcome to Evening Whispers of Love. This story is one that takes us back to wartime. Two souls meet by chance, fall in love through letters, and will they ever be together again? Sit back, relax, and hear all about Paula and Jim. Chapter 1. The Collision. The train station smelled of coal smoke, damp wool, and impatience. Paula O'Rourke decided she hated it instantly. She was already late, very late, and that alone was enough to put her in a foul mood. Her sensible shoes slapped hard against the stone floor as she hurried across the platform, one gloved hand gripping her small suitcase, the other clutching her orders so tightly they were already creased beyond hope. Somewhere behind her, a conductor barked a warning, and steam hissed like a living thing preparing to lunge. Paula lifted her chin and walked faster. That was when she ran directly into a wall. Or what she assumed was a wall, until it staggered backward, swore loudly, and dropped a canvas duffel bag directly onto her foot. "Oh," she snapped. "Do you mind?" The wall turned out to be a man. A very tall one. Lanky, long-limbed, wearing an army uniform that looked as though it had never quite learned how to sit properly on him. He blinked down at her, clearly startled, a mess of brown hair escaping from beneath his cap. "Well, I wasn't planning on it," he said, rubbing his elbow. "But you came at me like a torpedo." Paula bristled. She was short, she knew that, but she stood her ground, dark eyes flashing. "If you weren't standing in the middle of the platform like a scarecrow, this wouldn't have happened." He glanced around as if noticing the chaos for the first time. Soldiers rushing. Nurses in blue capes. Families clinging to one another. The whistle shrieked again. "Middle?" he said. "I was moving." "Toward me," Paula said pointedly. The man opened his mouth, shut it, then sighed as he bent to retrieve his bag. In the process he managed to knock his cap off, which skidded across the platform and stopped at Paula's feet. She looked down at it. Looked back up at him. He grimaced. "Of course." With a tight, unimpressed expression, Paula picked it up and handed it back. "Try keeping track of your things. The army won't do it for you." Something like a smile flickered across his face, quick and irritating. "I'll keep that in mind, miss." She was already stepping around him. "Late," she said. "I'm late." "Funny," he muttered, slinging the bag over his shoulder. "So am I." They parted in opposite directions, both convinced they had just encountered the most irritating person on the eastern seaboard. 3 minutes later, Paula skidded to a stop outside her train car, breathless, heart pounding. The conductor checked her papers with a frown, waved her aboard and shouted all aboard. Just as she stepped inside, she stopped for a moment and took a breath. She was exhausted, excited and nervous all at once. She was shipping overseas to help the boys as a nurse. She trained and was ready, so this inconvenience on the train she can handle, she told herself. She gathered her thoughts and looked at her ticket. 34B. She began walking down the aisle of the car, 39, 38, 37, 36. Finally 34. NB. No. She exhaled in relief, then froze. There, already seated by the window, long legs awkwardly folded, was the man from the platform. He looked up. Recognition dawned slowly. Then fully. Then disastrously. "You," they said at the same time. For a long moment, neither moved. The train jolted, metal screaming against metal as it lurched forward. The man, Walker his last name she noticed now from the stitched name on his uniform, blinked once. Twice. "Well," he said. "This is unfortunate." Paula dropped into the seat beside him with stiff dignity, arranging her skirt, her bag, her posture. "Don't get comfortable." "I'm not thrilled either." "Good," he said, shifting his knees to avoid bumping hers, and failing. "Because I snore. And fidget. And I ask questions." She shot him a glare. "If you so much as breathe too loudly." He raised his hands in surrender, though his mouth twitched again. "Truce. At least until the next stop." Paula turned sharply toward the window, jaw set, watching the station slide away as the train gathered speed. Beside her, Jim leaned back, eyes forward, pretending very hard not to notice the way her reflection flickered in the glass, or the strange feeling that this accidental collision might not be the last one fate had planned. And neither of them, despite their irritation, could quite ignore the fact that the war had just begun, and so, it seemed, had something else entirely. Chapter 2. Shared Directions. The train settled into its rhythm, a steady clatter that made conversation feel both too public and strangely private at the same time. Paula hadn't meant to speak first. She told herself she was perfectly content staring out the window, watching telephone poles blur into one another. But after nearly 10 minutes of silence, and one near collision of Jim Walker's elbow with her ribs, she sighed. "You're going to dislocate something if you keep moving like that," she said without looking at him. Jim glanced down at his own knees, which seemed to belong to a man built for wider spaces. "Sorry? Long legs. Design flaw." She huffed, but there was less bite in it this time. "Chicago?" he said suddenly. Paula turned. "What?" "That's where we're headed," Jim explained, tapping his ticket. "At least for now. You too, apparently." She checked hers, then nodded. "Chicago." Pause. "Odd, isn't it? Seems everyone's going somewhere odd these days." That earned him a look, brief, assessing. "Fair enough." Another stretch of silence passed, thinner than before. "So," Jim said carefully as though approaching a skittish animal, "you're a nurse?" Paula stiffened out of habit, then nodded. "Army Nurse Corps." "Thought so. My cousin wanted to be one. My mother thinks it isn't right for a girl to be going overseas in the war." Paula raised an eyebrow. "And what did you say?" He shrugged. "I think it's fine if that's what she wants. I got 7 younger siblings to think more about." That pulled a reluctant smile from her. "There are 7 of you?" 8, he corrected. "I'm the oldest." "Newark. 2 parents, 1 apartment, endless noise." Paula tried to imagine it, couldn't. "I'm from Boston. Beacon Hill. I am an only child." Jim whistled softly. "Well, that explains the posture." She bristled. "And what's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing bad," he said quickly. "Just confident. Like you've never had to shout to be heard." She considered that, then surprised herself by answering honestly. "I suppose not." The train rocked gently as it sped west. "I'm going to England," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I've never even been on a ship before. I don't know what I'll do if I'm sick the entire crossing." Jim turned toward her, expression thoughtful. "You don't strike me as the fainting sort." "That's because I don't faint," she said primly. Then quieter, "But I am nervous." "Me too," he admitted. "Excited? Scared? All of it mixed together." She glanced at him. Really looked this time. He had kind eyes, she noticed, despite his clumsiness. The sort that suggested responsibility had been placed on him early and often. "I worry about my brothers and sisters," he went on. "What if something happens while I'm gone? What if they need me?" Paula softened. "They'll be proud of you." He smiled faintly. "I hope so." Outside, fields rolled by, wide, open, unfamiliar. "Well," she said after a moment, straightening again, "at least we're headed the same way for now." Jim chuckled. "Fate or bad luck?" She almost smiled. Almost. But when the conductor passed and Jim instinctively shifted to give her more room, and when she found herself reminding him to eat the apple he'd forgotten in his bag, it became harder to deny that something had shifted. Not affection. Certainly not romance. Just understanding. And in a world tilting toward uncertainty, that felt like something worth holding on to. Chapter 3. Between stops. The hours on the train stretched and folded in on themselves, marked only by meals, naps, and the soft, constant motion beneath their feet. Paula slept in pieces, head tipped back, hat tilted low, waking whenever the train slowed or someone passed too closely. Each time she stirred, Jim was there in some new configuration. Knees pulled in, arm draped awkwardly over the seat, chin resting on his chest as if he'd lost an argument with gravity. By the time they reached the dining car, she was stiff and hungry and prepared to be disappointed. She was not wrong. Paula stared down at the plate in front of her with open skepticism. "Is that supposed to be stew?" she asked, lowering her voice, "or has it simply given up?" Jim leaned over, inspecting it with interest. "Looks great to me." She blinked. "You can't be serious." "Sure I am," he said, already spooning some up. "Meat, potatoes, gravy. That's 3 food groups right there." "It's gray," she pointed out. "Gray means hearty." She pushed her fork into it reluctantly. "It means tragic." Jim laughed, a quiet, genuine sound, and she found herself pausing, surprised by how much she liked it. He ate with the enthusiasm of someone who had never once taken a hot meal for granted, and after a moment Paula followed suit. The stew was bland and overcooked, but it filled the hollow place in her stomach. "See," Jim said. "Delicious." She rolled her eyes. "You have no standards." "Comes from having 8 siblings," he said easily. "You eat fast or you don't eat at all." The day faded into evening and the train grew quieter. Lights dimmed. Conversations hushed. The world outside the windows turned black and endless. It was late when Jim spoke again. "I'm scared," he said softly. Paula turned toward him. Most of the car was asleep now, the air filled with the gentle sounds of breathing and the distant rattle of the tracks. "Of course you are," she said. He shook his head. "No. I mean, really scared. Of messing it up. Of not being brave enough when it counts." She waited. "I want to do the right thing," he went on. "For my country. For my family. I send my paycheck home, every bit I can spare. They need it more than I do." Something in her chest shifted. "You didn't have to tell me that," she said quietly. "I know," Jim replied. "But I wanted to." She studied him in the low light. The clumsy man from the platform felt very far away now. "My parents don't know I enlisted," Paula said after a moment. "Not really. They thought nursing would be respectable. Temporary. They didn't know I'd volunteer for overseas." Jim frowned. "They must have been upset." "They were furious," she admitted. "I was raised to be proper. Polite. To keep my hands clean." She smiled faintly. "I wanted to see if I could do something that mattered. Something hard." "You already have," Jim said. She met his eyes, startled. The train rocked gently, carrying them both farther from everything they knew. For the first time, Paula realized she wasn't counting the miles anymore. She was listening to the man beside her, and feeling, despite herself, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Chapter 4: The Parting. Morning came quietly. The train slowed as it approached Chicago, the steady rhythm faltering, as though even it knew this was an ending. Paula folded her coat carefully, smoothing wrinkles that weren't really there. Jim stood, then sat again, unsure what to do with his hands. "So," he said, attempting lightness. "This is it." "Yes," Paula replied. "This is it." They hadn't spoken much since waking. Everything important seemed already said, and yet the space between them felt crowded with words left behind. Jim reached into his pocket and produced a scrap of paper already creased. "I wrote down my address. In case you know." Paula smiled and handed him her own, neat and deliberate. "I expect you to write." "I will," he said. "Every chance I get." The train hissed as it pulled into the station. Voices rose. Doors opened. Time pressed in. Paula stood, then hesitated. For once she didn't overthink it. She leaned in, kissed him, soft, quick, certain, and whispered, "Stay in touch." Jim's breath caught. "I will," he said, as though it were a promise he intended to keep. Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd, and Jim Walker stood there watching until he couldn't see her anymore, holding a name, an address, and the feeling that something small and fragile had just begun, even as the world rushed them apart.
Chapter 5: Jim's Letter. Texas, March 1944. Dear Paula, I hope this finds you well and somewhere steady enough to sit when you read it. Picture you always on the move now, busy hands, quick steps, doing things that matter. That makes it easier to imagine the distance between us. I'm in Texas. The heat is something else entirely, and the dust gets into places I didn't know dust could reach. We're training hard, days blurring together. Everyone talks big, but at night the barracks get quiet in a way that feels honest. I keep thinking about that train ride. Funny, isn't it? Of all the places to feel calm, steel wheels, crowded aisles, bad food, you'd think it wouldn't be there. But it was. Sitting beside you, arguing over stew and pretending not to watch the miles pass, felt like borrowing time from a better world. I miss you. I didn't expect to say that so plainly, but there it is. I miss the way you listened, the way you looked straight at me when I talked, like my words were worth something. I think about your laugh more than I probably should, and that kiss, brief as it was, has stayed with me longer than I can explain. I'm still scared. I won't pretend otherwise. But I want to do the right thing, just like I told you. My pay's going home every month. I picture my brothers fighting over the mailbox, and it helps me stand a little straighter. If you have time, write, even a few lines. It would mean more than you know. Until then, I'll hold on to that train ride, and the woman who made it feel like the beginning of something. Stay safe, Paula. Yours, Jim Walker.
Chapter 6: Paula's Reply. Somewhere in England. April, 1944. Dear Jim, Your letter found me at the end of a very long day, and I don't think you could have known how much I needed it. I read it once standing up, once sitting down, and then again before lights out. I folded it carefully and keep it tucked in my bag, though I know it nearly by heart now. England is green in a way that feels almost unfair, given everything else. The days are busy, too busy, sometimes, and the nights are worse. There are things I see here that I never imagined, things that stay with me long after the ward grows quiet. It's harder than I expected, mentally more than physically, but I still believe in what I'm doing. That belief is what keeps me steady. I think of you every day. I wonder how Texas feels under your feet, whether the heat has softened at all, whether you're eating enough. I imagine you standing a little apart from the others, writing letters home, worrying about your family the way you do. I admire that more than I've told you. I loved your letter. Truly. I've read it over and over, tracing the shape of your words, as though they might tell me more each time. It makes the distance feel smaller, even when the world here feels overwhelming. I think often about the train, how unlikely it all was. What if I'd been a moment earlier? What if you hadn't dropped your bag? What if we'd been seated apart? It's strange how something so small can matter so much. One careless step, one wrong seat, and we might never have known one another at all. I'm grateful we did. Please write again when you can. Your words are a comfort I didn't know I would need, and now I can't imagine doing without them. Stay safe, Jim. Truly, yours, Paula.
Chapter 7, Jim's Reply. Somewhere in England. June 1944. Dear Paula, I'm here now. England, I mean. I thought I'd recognize it the way you described. The green, the quiet beauty. But everything feels sharper when you arrive wearing a uniform and carrying a rifle. Still, every time we pass a medical tent or a nurse's station, I find myself looking twice, 3 times. Like you might be there if I just pay enough attention. I haven't seen you yet. That's the truth of it. But knowing we're on the same stretch of earth makes the days feel different somehow. I won't pretend this is easy. It's harder than I thought it would be. Louder. Longer. There are moments when the fear comes on so suddenly it steals the air right out of my chest. I do what I can, same as everyone else, but there are nights when I lie awake and think about how unprepared I was to imagine any of this. Your letters help more than I can say. I still carry the first one, and the second. I read them when things feel especially heavy, when I need reminding that there is a world beyond orders and mud and waiting. You are very real to me here, Paula, your voice, your steadiness, the way you see things clearly even when they hurt. I've been meaning to ask you something, and I've started this sentence more times than I'll admit. When this is over, when the war finally lets us go, would you want to see me again? I don't know what the world will look like then, or where either of us will land. I only know that I don't want that train ride to be the only place we ever truly shared. I'd like to sit across from you somewhere quiet, argue about food again, and see what becomes of us when time isn't borrowed. I'll wait for your answer. Truly. With bated breath. Yours, Jim Walker.
Chapter 8. Paula's Answer. Somewhere in England. July 1944. Dear Jim. Yes. I didn't even finish your letter before I knew my answer, and I didn't want to wait a single day longer to tell you. Yes, I want to see you again. More than that, I find myself holding on to the thought of it as though it were something solid, something promised. I suppose I should tell you the truth now that I've started. I look for you everywhere. Every soldier who limps into the ward, every man who lifts his head when I pass, every familiar height or awkward turn, I catch myself wondering if it's you. It never is, not yet, but that doesn't stop me from looking. I don't think I could stop even if I tried. Things here are getting worse. There are more patients now, more urgency, more nights when sleep feels like a rumor someone once told me about. My days turn into nights, and the nights blur back into mornings. Sometimes I forget what day it is entirely. I just move from bed to bed, doing what I can, telling myself it's enough. And then there are the dreams. I never used to dream much, or at least not dreams worth remembering. Now I do. I dream of a future, quiet, ordinary things. A table, a window, your voice somewhere nearby. The war is always over in those dreams, and somehow, without question, you are there with me. Every time. I don't know when we'll see each other again, or where or how. But knowing that you're here, that we're breathing the same air, standing on the same soil, makes the distance feel smaller than it should. Write when you can. I will read every word. Yours, Paula.
Chapter 9, Jim's Warning. Somewhere in England, August 1944. Dear Paula, I don't know when this letter will reach you, or when I'll be able to write again after it. We're heading into a thicker area now, everything feels closer, heavier. Time doesn't move the way it used to. If you don't hear from me for a while, I need you to know something first. It won't mean I've stopped thinking of you. I think of you all day, every day. In the quiet moments before we move out. In the loud ones when there's no room for fear. You're there when I wake up and there when I try to sleep. I hold on to the sound of your voice the way some men hold on to medals or prayers. You wrote about your dreams, and I smiled when I read that part. I have the same ones. Simple things. A future where the world is steady again. A life that feels earned. And you, always you, somehow right at the center of it, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. I won't be too forward. Or at least I'll try not to be. But I will say this. Paula Walker is a very good name. It sounds strong. It sounds right. If there comes a stretch of silence, days, weeks, please don't doubt what we've built in words and glances and that one borrowed train ride. And if something were to happen to me, I want you to know this without question. You would be the last thing on my mind. Not the war. Not the fear. You. Hold steady for me, Paula. I'm holding steady for you. Always. Jim Walker.
Chapter 10, What She Finally Says. Somewhere in England. September 1944. Dear Jim, I received your letter this morning and had to step away afterward because my hands were shaking too badly to work. I read it slowly, then again, then once more, just to be sure I hadn't imagined any of it. I'm being given leave. 2 weeks. Everyone says I should be grateful, and I am. At least, I know I ought to be. But the truth is, I don't know what to do with the idea of rest if it doesn't include you. It feels strange to step away from the ward when things are so heavy, when the days keep folding into one another. Stranger still to imagine time passing quietly while you are somewhere dangerous. The weather has turned again. Rain, then sun, then rain as if the sky can't make up its mind. There were bombings last night, not close enough to reach us, but close enough to feel. You learn the sounds quickly. Which ones to fear? Which ones to ignore? I wish I could say that gets easier. What does feel steady as you? I carry your words with me, now the way I once carried rules and expectations. They matter more. The thought of you thinking of me, of us dreaming the same small, ordinary future, has become something I lean on when the nights stretch too long. You should know this, especially now. I love you. I don't say it lightly, and I don't say it because the war has made everything feel urgent, though it has. I say it because somewhere between a train platform and all these miles apart, you became part of how I imagine my life continuing. If you go quiet for a while, I will wait. I will think of you every day, just as you said you would think of me. And when this is over, when not if, I will find you. Until then, stay safe. Please. All my heart. Paula. Chapter 11. Her Letter in the Silence. Somewhere in England. October 1944. Dear Jim, I haven't heard from you. I know you're busy. I know you're somewhere hard and dangerous, and I don't expect anything else. But I'm writing anyway, because I need you to know that I'm still here, thinking of you, and carrying you with me even in the quiet. My leave was wet. The English countryside greeted me with 2 weeks of constant rain, gray skies, and mud that stuck to everything. At first I was frustrated, but then I realized how nice it was to have a little time off, to breathe in air that didn't smell of antiseptic or smoke, and to forget, even for a moment, the world waiting for me back at the wards. I received a letter from my parents. Or rather, a notice really. They've basically disowned me. Cut off the funding, made it clear they expect me to come crawling back if I ever want anything more from them. I don't care. I don't. I've decided a long time ago I didn't really like Boston anyway. It's all rules and expectations and clean lines that never fit me. This life I'm building, however small and fragile it feels, is mine. I hope you're okay. I hope that when this letter reaches you, you're safe and standing, and that nothing too heavy has fallen on your shoulders. It's completely fine that you haven't written me. I understand. Truly. I just want you to know that I think of you, constantly, even when the days are too long or the nights too quiet. And Jim, I love you. Always. Paula.
Chapter 12. Jim Writes Back. Somewhere in England. November 1944. Dear Paula, it's taken me too long to write. The days have grown heavier than I thought possible. Winter is creeping in, and the cold makes everything sharper. The mud, the wind, the ache of missing what we left behind. Many of the men from my battalion, they're gone. Too many too quickly. Sometimes I wonder if the world will ever feel steady again. Your letters have been my anchor. I read them as often as I can, sometimes over and over until the paper starts to wilt in my hand. I can picture you there, somewhere safe, writing these words with that quiet determination I remember from the train, and it steadies me more than I can say. I want to tell you plainly now, though I've probably said it before in smaller ways. I love you. Always. Through all of this. And when it's over, when the war finally ends, and the ground stops trembling beneath us, I want to ask for your hand properly. I want us to meet in Chicago, at the train station where we first saw each other. Will you do that? Will you wait for me there, so we can start something not borrowed, not hurried, not pressed into the edges of fear? I'm thinking of you constantly, Paula. In the quiet, in the noise, in the moments when I have nothing else to hold on to. You are with me in every step I take. Please write if you can. And know that whatever happens here, whatever the days bring, you are my compass, and I am yours. Love, Jim.
Chapter 13. Paula's Letter. Somewhere in England. December 1944. Dear Jim, I heard there was a big event near where you're stationed. Was it your unit? I can't stop thinking about it. I'm worried, more than I can put into words. I hope you and the men are safe, that you made it through whatever it was without harm. I'm slated to go back home soon, but I've asked to extend my time here, even if just for a few months. Part of me can't bear to leave this place, not with everything still happening, but mostly, I can't bear to leave without knowing more of you are safe. I will absolutely meet you in Chicago. I am waiting for that day, counting it in my mind, imagining the platform, the train, the first sight of you. That thought keeps me steady more than anything else. If you can, write. If not, I understand. I am always seeking you, Jim, through letters, through memories, through the distance itself. No matter what, you are with me. I love you. Always. Yours, Paula.
Chapter 14. A Letter from Douglas. Somewhere in England. January 1945. Dear Paula, I hope you'll forgive me writing to you like this. My name is Douglas Johnson. I serve alongside Jim Walker, and I wanted to let you know something important, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Jim was injured. He's been sent back to the States. I don't know the full extent of his condition, and I can't tell you much more than that. He is being cared for, I promise, but I felt it was right you should know. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you. I can't imagine how it feels to hear this from anyone other than Jim himself. I hope with all my heart that he recovers quickly and that this letter reaches you before your worry grows too heavy. I believe he may be at Insur Hospital here, likely somewhere in the States, though I don't have the exact address. If you write, perhaps it will reach him, and perhaps it will help him keep fighting, even in small ways. Please forgive my intrusion, Paula. I only wanted to make sure you knew that he is alive and being looked after. That's all I can say, but I hope it brings some small measure of relief. Sincerely, Douglas Johnson.
Chapter 15. The Meeting 11 months later. The train screeched to a halt in Chicago, its wheels grinding against the tracks in a sound that made Paula's heart leap. She clutched Jim's last letter tightly in her hand, the paper soft and worn from months of reading and rereading, and felt a nervous flutter as she adjusted the brim of her hat and smoothed the front of her dress. She tried to breathe evenly, though every inch of her body was buzzing with anticipation. The platform was crowded with returning soldiers, families, and curious onlookers. Steam from the engine mingled with the winter air, wrapping everyone in a soft haze that made it almost impossible to see clearly. She stepped down from the train, weaving through the throng, eyes scanning desperately for him. And then, in the distance, she saw him. Jim. Standing tall, though leaning slightly on a cane. He waved, a small, tentative gesture, but it was unmistakably him. Her breath caught, and suddenly there was nothing else in the world. No war, no letters, no months of uncertainty. Just him. She broke into a run, weaving through the crowd, ignoring startled glances. He laughed as she neared, relief and joy written on his face. They collided in an embrace so tight that the platform seemed to disappear around them. "I love you," Paula whispered into his shoulder, her voice trembling. "I love you too," Jim replied, his hands gripping her shoulders as if afraid she might vanish if he let go. For a long moment they just held each other, the world around them alive with noise and movement, but impossibly distant. Then Jim reached into his coat pocket. Paula's heart skipped a beat. "Paula," he said, voice steady now, though his eyes were full of emotion, "I've waited too long to say this." He lowered himself to one knee, cane tapping lightly against the stone platform. "Will you marry me? Will you be mine officially after everything?" Tears sprang to her eyes, and without hesitation she nodded. "Yes. Yes, Jim, I will." He slipped the ring onto her finger and they rose together, laughing and crying at the same time. Around them, the station continued its busy hum, but Paula and Jim were in their own world, finally, completely and unmistakably together. For the first time in years, everything felt right. Thank you for listening to Paula and Jim's story. I like the letter format a lot, do you? I remember when I was a kid I loved getting mail, but now it's just bills or junk mail. Kinda sad. Stay tuned for more stories from Evening Whispers of Love.